Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Thursday, November 21st. I'm Justin Sacher, in for Elizabeth Arkalian. In 2017, the Tulare Regional Medical Center went bankrupt after being run by an outside company. Now the man who led that company has been sentenced for crimes he committed while leading the medical center.
I really think this is a cautionary tale for, public districts that want to do outside contracting. You need to be really careful about who you're allowing to manage local taxpayer dollars with.
More in just a few minutes, but first, today's headlines. A federal judge in Fresno has officially approved a $20 million settlement between Bitwise Industries and its former employees. Last year, lawyers representing nearly 900 workers filed a class action lawsuit. The lawsuit followed the tech startup's sudden collapse, which left all of its workers without jobs. Federal prosecutors say Bitwise's two co-founders defrauded investors and lenders. The settlement was reached in July but needed final approval. A Merced County high school could face sanctions for forfeiting a volleyball playoff this past weekend. As KVPR's Carrie Klein reports, the school was protesting a transgender competitor.
Stone Ridge Christian School in Merced was set to face off against a San Francisco high school this past Saturday in girls' varsity volleyball. But the day before, Stone Ridge forfeited because of a reportedly transgender player on the opposing team. Stone Ridge's athletic director told KVPR that the school will always stand for biblical truth and that girls must compete against girls. KVPR reached out to the opposing team, the San Francisco Waldorf School, but did not receive a response. The California Interscholastic Federation told other news outlets that Stone Ridge could be penalized for withdrawing from a playoff game. For KVPR News, I'm Carrie Klein.
The San Joaquin Valley is leading the state in a program that allows students to earn college credits while in high school. New state data shows that Valley high schoolers earned the highest number of college credits compared to any other region in California. The Valley also has shown dramatic growth in the program in the last decade. Data also show that Latinos account for the largest share of any ethnic group in dual enrollment, and women outnumber men. One of Mexico's best-known songwriters will perform for the final time in Fresno next year. The singer Ramon Ayala has scheduled a show for next July at Fresno's Save Mart Center. He's marking his final tour, which will cap a 40-year musical career. His music is widely known in the norteño genre, which originated in Mexico's northern regions. Known as the King of the Accordion, Ayala has recorded 105 albums and has won 4 Grammys.
Support for Central Valley Daily comes from Fresno Mazda, part of the Prieto Automotive family, with special holiday financing deals on select models through the end of the year at the new showroom on Blackstone and Barstow. Information at myfresnomazda.com.
And now, to our main story. In 2017, Tulare Regional Medical Center in the city of Tulare declared bankruptcy and closed its doors. In the years leading up to the closure, the hospital had been run by Healthcare Conglomerate Associates, or HCCA. The hospital stayed closed for nearly a year before being taken over by Adventist Health. However, after the bankruptcy, Dr. Yorai Benzeevi, who was CEO of HCCA, was accused of a long list of financial crimes that led the hospital to its fate. He was initially charged with 40 felony counts and 6 misdemeanors. Earlier this year, Dr. Benzeevi pleaded no contest to some of the charges. He was sentenced earlier this month and ordered to pay just over $2 million in restitution. Now, this is a pretty complicated story. Today, we won't be able to cover all the details that led to this sentencing, but we wanted to bring you up to speed with the major bullet points with one of the people who's been covering it the whole time. Reggie Ellis is president and CEO of the Sun-Gazette newspaper, which serves Tulare County. he joined KVPR's Carrie Klein for a conversation and takes us back to the beginning, when Dr. Benzeevi's company, HCCA, first took over the Tulare Regional Medical Center.
A really interesting thing about this story is that, it started off pretty well when Benzeevi first got there. When you look at kind of the timeline of what happened, HCCA was formed while they were in negotiation with the Tulare Hospital District, so brand new company. By June of 2015, so, under 2 years later, their revenues are outpacing expenses by $10 million. So everything's financially is going really well in the beginning. As things progressed, there started to, I want to say 2017, things started to change a little bit. By June of that year, they'd gone from 10 million in reserves to 4.6 million in losses, so quite a shift. 2016, late 2016, early 2017, they started extending lots of lines of credit, kind of putting the hospital district in debt with the idea that we're making money, that we have money to repay this, so we can go ahead and start doing some real major shifts in what the hospital can do with its finances. They thought they had a lot of flexibility at that point because of the reserves, when in actuality, what was going was kind of a shell game that HCCA was playing, moving money around, signing leases, loaning equipment from one hospital to another hospital that they also ran. So lot going on.
Right. And then so a couple years after the hospital's closure in 2020, Benzeevi was charged with 46 felony and misdemeanor counts. And then last week, he pleaded guilty to a handful of those, specifically 6 felonies and 2 misdemeanors of those. His charges are many. They take a long time to explain all of them, but could you tell us a handful of the major things that he was accused of?
Yeah, most of these things have to do with the finances of the hospital district. This is technically versions of malfeasance, extending lines of credit from one hospital to another without board approval. There was major conflicts of interest, obviously, on his role in doing things without board approval, serving as kind of the head of 2 different hospital districts and doing things without board approval on both sides. When you boil it all down, it's basically he's monkeying around with public finances for 2 public hospitals.
And so also what some of this boils down to is embezzlement. I mean, how much money are we talking about in total?
Yeah, so the numbers are a little hazy on exactly how much was embezzled, how much was just loans that the hospital had to repay. You're looking at a total number of somewhere between $15 million and $20 million, primarily out of the Tulare Hospital District. I don't think that Southern Inyo, the amount of malfeasance happened there as did in Tulare. But yeah, you're talking about big numbers for a small public hospital in the city of Tulare. So really significant for that public district.
And so the closure of Tulare Regional Medical Center made a lot of people angry. Some people argued it put lots of people's health at risk. And even before the hospital closed, there were community groups that had spoken out about the hospital's mismanagement. How are community members reacting to this sentencing decision from the judge?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people are happy. This is now the second of 3 defendants who's been sentenced, and neither of them has a day of prison. So I think people were disappointed in that. They have paid quite a bit of restitution for, some of the money that they embezzled. That's good for the taxpayers and the hospital district itself. But I really don't think people are happy with the fact and have voiced their displeasure with the sentencing not involving any prison time. Essentially, Benzeevi, the CEO of HCCA, and then Alan Germany, the CFO for HCCA, they paid some restitution, they did community service hours, and they have 2 years of probation, and that's about it.
So what is the outcome here? There was a sentencing decision earlier this month. What's the outlook for Benzeevi coming up?
On November 14th, Benzeevi was sentenced to 2 years probation in Los Angeles. He is not allowed to leave the country because he was at one time considered a flight risk. And He was also required to do 600 hours of community service and repay 2.4 million in restitution. The latter two, he's already done. So he's already served his 600 hours and already paid the 2.4 million.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to share about this story that we haven't covered yet?
I really think this is a cautionary tale for, public districts that want to do outside contracting. You need to be really careful about who you're allowing to manage local taxpayer dollars with. And this story really shows that it can all look good and then all of a sudden turn very, very bad. So there are lots of lessons about, if you're on a public board, you have a fiduciary responsibility to watch those taxpayer dollars. That's essentially all you do as a public board. And, people need to take that seriously if they're going to take on that role.
That was KVPR's Kerry Klein speaking with Reggie Ellis. He's president of the Sun-Gazette newspaper, which serves Tulare County. And that does it for today's show. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Justin Sacher. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
No matter what happens in Washington, the NPR Politics Podcast is here for you. For the latest news, insights, and analysis from the election and beyond, listen to the NPR Politics Podcast.